What it do, YouTube? It's your boy Bako99, and for all of you who have made the playoffs in your fantasy leagues, or if you're still trying to win some money in daily fantasy, as we have about 3 weeks left after week 14, then that's why I'm doing this video, so we can kind of see what players are in good positions to do it for us this week. So let's go ahead and start off like we normally do with the quarterbacks. And right now, first we have rank 1 of week 14 is Russell Wilson. You're going to see that I really like Seattle Green Bay game for fantasy purposes this week. Wilson is the 12th cheapest quarterback this week on FanDuel and provides both passing and rushing ability. There are some weather concerns for this game, however, so be sure to check back throughout the week and for updates. So be sure to take another look Sunday morning about the weather, but if everything's not too crazy, Russell Wilson should be a good play this week. And then second, we got Eli Manning. And I wouldn't use Eli Manning in seasonal playoff matchups this week, but I do love him for the big tournament plays to be contrarian. The Giants are going to beat the Cowboys and will lean on the big passing plays to get the job done doing so. So I would definitely recommend Eli Manning in the tournament for daily fantasy. And then next we have Andy Dalton. And the surest bet for 250 yards and 2 TDs this week, surprisingly, is Andy Dalton. The Browns are horrible and give up the second most fantasy points and passing yards per game. So I actually have Drew Brees in one of my leagues. I'm in the playoffs, but I'm seriously thinking about sitting Drew Brees, and because he never does good against the Tampa Bay Bucks. You can look at the history of it, and I may roll with Andy Dalton for the playoffs. Got to make it happen. So Andy Dalton's a good play if you have him in any lineups for the playoffs and seasonal fantasies. And then next we have Jameis Winston. So here's the deal with Winston. I don't like Drew Brees, like I said, and the New Orleans offense much this week. That being said, if the Saints get rolling, that will force the Bucs to go to the air in order to keep up, which of course would drive Winston's production up as well. He has a floor of 250 passing yards and 2 touchdowns with the game flow if it's going that way in the upside. His base production provides us a nice 2 times return, which is perfect for cash games as well. So he'll be a solid play for daily fantasy, and definitely would get him in your lineups if you're doing any DraftKings FanDuel lineups. And if I think I have one league where I'm running him with quarterback in my seasonal, so he's also a decent play there. If you have some of the other quarterbacks like Andy Dalton per se, then play those over Winston. But if not, Winston is a good solid play this week. And then moving right along, we have Andrew Luck. The Colts are going against the Titans. And the Texans are banged up on defense real bad. Cornerback Jonathan Joseph and Jadeveon Clowney will likely not play, while Vince Wilfork, Brian Cushing, John Simmons, and Kareem Jackson are each hurt as well. Now, I did see recently that Clowney would be playing, but still they're kind of beat up at the cornerback positions as well. So the Texans are giving up 250 yards and 3 touchdowns per game over the last 3 games, and Luck is coming off of destruction of the Jets on the Monday night game. He'll be highly owned, but it's a good bet for another big at home production this week. So Andrew Luck is very good. And then to wrap up the quarterbacks, we have Tyrod Taylor, Phillip Rivers going against the Panthers. We got Matty Ice going against the Rams, Carson Palmer, and Matthew Stafford going against the Bears. All right, let's take a look at these running backs. And starting off, we have David Johnson, ranked number 1. Surprising, I know, right? By far the best player the entire week. All of my cash game lineups will be built around Johnson no matter what. So whether daily fantasy or seasonal, you're good to go with him. And then I have ranked number 2 shockingly is Jeremy Hill. Hill has been a workhorse for the Bengals ever since Gio Bernard went down. So the Browns are abysmal against the run, ranking 2nd worst at yards per game and 5th most rushing yards per carry this season. They also give up the 2nd most fantasy points per game. So that reason, Jeremy Hill is high on the rankings this week. Next, we have LeSean McCoy, and some will back away from McCoy this week after he had 2 touchdown vulture last week from Gillislee. But while this is disappointing news, we cannot ignore what McCoy has been able to do this season, and the threat that he is. The Steelers give up the 6th most fantasy points to running backs, and the Bills have rushed for the most yards and yards per attempt in football this season. And then after McCoy, we have Matt Forte going against the 49ers. And with an inexperienced quarterback starting and a matchup against one of the worst all-time defenses against the run, we can expect a lot from Forte this week, so he should have a bounce back week. And then we have Le'Veon Bell going against the Bills. After Le'Veon Bell, we have Jordan Howard. And Jordan Howard, they're going against the Detroit Lions, who have been a lot better on defense, but still give up plays to running backs. And Jordan Howard's been kind of on a tear the last 4 weeks. So definitely will roll out there with him if you have him in your lineups. Then we also have Lamar Miller. Lamar Miller is a tournament play for daily fantasy only this week because of the unsure of the usage rate through so he has been banged up lately. The matchup is too great to ignore him completely. The Colts give up the 6th most rushing yards per attempt this season, and he has also the worst graded defense against the run according to Pro Football Focus. And they will be without linebacker Odell Jackson, who has been suspended for the next 4 games. So everything lines up and looks good for Lamar Miller. It's just that we gotta see how much he'll be used, and we don't really know that for sure with some of those lingering injuries. But nevertheless, if you have him, you need to roll out there with them. We have DeMarco Murray going against the Broncos. And we have Robert Kelly in the rankings this week. And Kelly is a terrific value this week, and thus I think his ownership will be a lot higher than most people expect. The Eagles are bleeding points and recently, and Kelly will handle all of the red zone work for the Redskins. Washington gets their left tackle Trent Williams back this week from suspension, which will improve their running room as well. So our Robert Kelly should have a pretty solid week this week going against the Eagles. And to wrap it up, we have Theo Riddick going against the Bears. All right, now on to wide receivers for Week 14 rankings. And man, there are a lot of options this week for the wide receivers. Let's just start from the top. And who's up there is Mike Evans. And this week, he will rebound against the Saints defense that surrenders the 2nd most passing yards per game and the 3rd most passing yards per attempt. So he had a down week last week, but I expect him to have one of his bounce back monster games in Week 14. So he's coming number 1 in for the rankings. Next, we have Odell Beckham. The Giants will be, I believe, like I said before, the Giants will beat the Cowboys this week. And if they do, it'll be because of big pass plays from Eli Manning to OBJ. So if that goes down, Odell Beckham would definitely have a huge week this week. So he's number 2. And then number 3 in the rankings is Tyrell Williams. And Williams played through his torn labrum last week. And though he only caught 2 passes, he posted 47 yards and a touchdown in the process. He's in a much better spot this week against the Panthers secondary that gives up the 3rd most passing yards a game and the 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So he's a real good play this week. Next, we have Doug Baldwin, and I'm expecting a back and forth high-scoring game in Green Bay this week, as long as we don't get a ton of snow up there. Baldwin is a terrific spot against the Packers, who give up the most yards per pass attempt and the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers. So long as the weather is not just horrible up there, I would roll with Doug Baldwin if you have him in your lineup. And then next on the rankings, we have Emmanuel Sanders. As long as Trevor Siemian plays, I love Sanders as he's the perfect wide receiver 2 in cash games and daily fantasy this week. And next after that, we have Michael Thomas. And Michael Thomas, he's kind of been suffering with the injury, but still, if he's out there, then he's healthy enough to play. And this week, Saints against the Bucks, even though I warn you, Drew Brees hasn't traditionally done well against the Bucks over the last 4 years, no matter at home or away. But still, Michael Thomas is out there. He's one of the main targets for Drew Brees. And if he's on the field, he should get you at least something decent and respectable, if not a big game like he's been doing all year long. Next, we have Antonio Brown, and we don't need to talk about Antonio Brown. He's a monster. They're going against the Bills. Although Big Ben doesn't really play his best outside, in the weather away from home, but still, Antonio Brown can be ignored. And then next, we have Golden Tate. And Tate is averaging 9 targets, 7 receptions, and 90 yards, and 4 TDs over his last 7 games. So where I was high on Marvin Jones, and that was my sleeper of the year, Golden Tate has really came on strong at the end of the season, while Marvin Jones is kind of faded, some of it due to injuries. But nevertheless, I'm really feeling Golden Tate lately, so he's in the rankings. And then we have Demaryius Thomas going against the Titans. We have T.Y. Hilton in the rankings going against the Texans. Jordan Matthews going against the Redskins. We have Tyler Boyd in the lineup as well in the rankings. And who they're playing, Tyler Boyd playing the Browns, so definitely want to roll with him. And then we have Julio Jones, but I caution you with Julio Jones that he has, that turf toe, and he's a game time decision. So that's going to be a tough one. Usually if he plays, I say you go with Julio Jones if you're on the field, but definitely you want to monitor that injury with Julio Jones. And then kind of some other wide receivers I didn't mention on the rankings, but I still think are very good plays. Some even sleeper plays. I have Brandon LaFell. If Andy Dalton achieves the very standard goal of 250 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, it means LaFell should be good for about 5 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown, which would be a 3x return of his salary in daily fantasy. Also, another sneak play is Sammy Watkins. Watkins lining up against the Steelers rookie Artie Burns is one of the better wide receiver cornerback matchups of the week. Watkins will hit for a big pass play this week, which is why I really like him in all the GPP contests as well. And then also we have Dontrell Inman, who I picked up off the waivers today actually to plug in my lineup in my playoffs. And if you don't want to pay up in daily fantasy for Tyrell Williams, consider a less expensive option but a more stable player within Inman. So he's another good player. And then the last one I have is Will Fuller. My wide receiver mine absolutely loves a healthy Will Fuller against the Colts and against their cornerback Darius Butler. He's a GPP play only, meaning only play him in the tournament in DraftKings or FanDuel, and hasn't done much since his breakout first 3 weeks of the season, but this could be a return for the rookie as long as Brock Osweiler can get him the ball accurately. Well, there you have it. That's the wide receiver rankings for week 14. So many options. I'm pretty sure some of you, if you're playing the seasonal leagues, may have 1 or 2 of these receivers. So if you're debating between them and some other players, use this as a reference. And if they're in these rankings, you need to get them in the lineups. Now let's keep this train moving and let's go ahead and look at the tight ends. And leading off the pack, we have Jimmy Graham at the top ranking for week 14. And Graham is averaging 6 targets, 5 receptions, 65 yards, and 8 TDs over his last 5 games. The Packers will give up the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends this season, so definitely a top play this week. And then next we have Tyler Eifert going against the Browns. The Browns are one of the worst defenses of the last decade, so all the Cincy pass catchers are in play this week, no matter what. So Tyler Eifert is in play as well as the other players we talked about in that game. And then number 3 in the rankings, we have Delanie Walker. Seems like everybody is forgetting about Walker this week, which means great ownership numbers for the Titans tight end. The Broncos are good against the tight end spot, but Walker is a high-volume guy who could benefit greatly if the Titans use play action in the red zone. So that's some upside for you for Delanie Walker, and he's ranked number 3. And then we have ranked number 4 is Antonio Gates. Luke Kuechly will be back for the Panthers, but they still don't have the resources to stop tight end position. Carolina gives up the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends this season, so he's in the rankings. And then next we have Greg Olsen, and they're going against the Chargers. After that we have Cameron Brate. Now Cameron Brate has a touchdown in 4 of his last 6 games and has only once had under 5 targets in that span, so his recent tear he's been on makes him real valuable. And going against the Saints, I really like that matchup. So we have Brate, and then the rankings at number 6. And then to wrap it up, we have Jordan Reed, and he's a questionable, I believe, with that dislocated shoulder, but all signs are showing that he might be able to play. And if he does, I will still roll out there with him. And then we have Eric Ebron going against the Bears, the Darius Green going against the Bills, and we have Gary Barnidge going against the Bengals. And as I always say, last but not least, we have the defense and special teams. And first on the rankings is a team that's been there most of the year in fantasy football is the Minnesota Vikings. By far the best defense on the board this week. No need to say any more about that. If you have them on your season or if you're playing daily, definitely got to get them in the lineup. Next, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. Any defensive special team against the Browns is good, but RG3 in his first start in 11 weeks makes that matchup even better. So they're coming in ranked at number 2. And then ranked number 3, we have the Detroit Lions. The Lions are playing much better defense and will have linebacker Andre Levy back to face the Bears. Chicago has the 3rd fewest points scored this season, so they're a good defense this week. And then ranked 4, we have Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Tampa Bay Buccaneers has been lights out as of late, and their defense special team is averaging 12 fantasy points per game over the last 3 weeks. I'll take the chances on them for this price, despite the high-powered offense of New Orleans Saints if you're playing daily fantasy. And then next we have the Atlanta Falcons, and they're going against the Rams. The Rams with the rookie quarterback Goff and their horrible offensive line are just not able to put up points. So definitely I would roll with the Falcons if you have them this week. We have the New York Giants going against the Cowboys. We have the Philadelphia Eagles going against the Redskins. The Denver Broncos going against the Titans. And then in ranked number 9, we have Chicago Bears going against the Lions. And then to wrap it up, we have the Los Angeles Rams going against the Falcons. So there you have it, guys. Those are some of the better plays for week 14, whether you're in seasonal fantasy or whether you're in daily fantasy. Any one of you out there in the playoffs, good luck to everyone, and we'll see you next week. Peace.